Zenitsu Agatsuma, coward, simp, a boy completely lost in self-hate, but also a boy who would learn to unlock his unlimited potential.
霹靂一閃
During Japan's Taisho period, a seemingly ordinary child by the name of Zenitsu Agatsuma was born. However, this child's father had passed away prior to his birth, and his mother had abandoned him the day he was born. Thus, he was forced to grow up alone without the guidance of adults. But maybe worst of all, due to a lack of motherly love and affection, Zenitsu flopped when it came to women. Though true tragedy struck when his latest of 7 ex-girlfriends left him $600,000 yen in debt. He was on the verge of being sold into slavery when suddenly an old man appeared and saved the foolish boy from his mountain of debt. His name was Jigoro Kuwajima, a former thunder-breathing Hashira. Jigoro wanted to train a young swordsman, but little did he know that the young boy he had saved for this purpose was a coward.
修行を続けるぞ。いやもう死ぬと思うのでこれ以上修行したら
Zenitsu was forced to train with the old man, but he couldn't handle it. After all, he was a weak-willed individual. He had tried to run away from his master, but Jigoro Kuwajima refused to let him leave. Zenitsu had no self-confidence in his abilities, even after years of training. He loved the old man for all he had done for him, but one day his self-esteem hit an all-time low.
死にはせんこの程度で降りてこいこのバカ者じいちゃんの期待に応えたいんだよ俺だってでも無理なんだじいちゃんに隠れて修行もしてんだよ全然寝てないの俺落ち着けていつお前には才能がもう俺は嫌な人生だよ雷に打たれてさ
The boy was chosen by thunder and lightning itself, even changing his hair color to match his technique. Zenitsu had believed he was cursed to be struck by lightning, but his sensei knew better, so he continued to train the boy in the art of thunder breathing. There are 6 thunder breathing forms, and Zenitsu's fellow student, a boy a few years older named Kaigaku, had mastered all the forms except the first form, the most difficult form. However, Zenitsu, as cowardly as he was, had mastered the first form to absolute perfection. But since he couldn't manage any of the other techniques, he still believed he was useless. To make matters worse, Kaigaku was an ill-tempered young man. He couldn't fathom that this useless crybaby was able to master the legendary first form of thunder breathing, while he himself could not. Thus, he took out his rage on a young Zenitsu who was just beginning to gain his confidence.
何度も言わせんじゃねえ。消えろよ。朝から晩までビービー泣いて恥ずかしくねえのかよ。お前みたいな奴に割く時間がもったいない。
でもじいちゃんは
じいちゃんなんて慣れ慣れしく呼ぶんじゃねえ。元柱に指南を受けられることなんてめったにない。なぜお前はここにいるんだ。なぜお前はここにしがみつく。
As a result, Zenitsu began to spiral into a pit of despair.
親のいない俺は誰からも期待されない。誰も俺が何かを掴んだり何かを成し遂げる未来を夢見てはくれない。誰も望んではくれない。
But Jigoro Kuwajima, his master, his sensei, the one Zenitsu considered his only family, refused to let him fall into darkness.
いいんだ善逸お前一つのことしかできないならそれを極め抜け極限の極限まで磨け泣いていい逃げてもいいただ諦めるな極限まで叩き上げ誰よりも強靭な刃になれ一つのことを極めろ
In order to become a demon slayer, one must pass the final selection at Mount Fujikasani, surviving 7 days in a forest infested with demons. While Tanjiro was undergoing this vicious trial, so was Zenitsu Agatsuma. At the end of the 7 days, only 5 out of 20 remained, including Tanjiro Kamado, Kanao Tsuyuri, Genya Shinazugawa, Inosuke Hashibira, and Zenitsu Agatsuma. Zenitsu was officially crowned as a member of the Demon Slayer Corps and assigned a Kasugai crow for communication. Though his crow was actually a sparrow, the young demon slayer was insulted, however. A sparrow represents peace and joy, away from worries and fear, all things that Zenitsu lacked but had the potential to achieve in his lifetime. The boy was then instructed to select an ore of his choosing, to which his katana would then be forged. But Zenitsu figured it would be a waste of resources.
多分すぐ死にますよ俺は。
A few days after the final selection examination, Zenitsu had fallen into despair. The utter disbelief of surviving the examination had led the weak-willed boy to a single thought. But Tanjiro Kamado stopped Zenitsu and excused the girl. Zenitsu couldn't believe what his fellow recruit had done, so he told Tanjiro he must protect him until he gets married. Tanjiro asked the coward why he became a demon slayer in the first place. But as Zenitsu was explaining his past, a crow arrived with a mission for the 2 new demon slayers. Zenitsu couldn't believe his ears, but as his new friend Tanjiro had shared a rice ball with him, he couldn't simply abandon him. So he accepted his fate. The 2 finally arrived at a large house in the woods. Though seemingly normal, Zenitsu possessed sensitive ears and had heard a strange sound, when suddenly the sound became louder. There were 2 children nearby, frozen with fear. They told the demon slayers about a monster who had taken their brother inside that house, and they tracked the monster here. But luckily, the one who had been torn up by the demon inside was not their brother. So Tanjiro had assured the 2 that he and Zenitsu would defeat the monster and rescue their brother, though Zenitsu wasn't too pleased.
無理強いするつもりはない。
But the coward unwillingly accepted his fate and entered the mansion. Shortly after entering, the 2 children followed them out of fear of being alone. However, before they could be sent back, the 2 demon slayers had been split up. But rather than eliminate the demon trapping them, Zenitsu had one goal in mind: to escape. However, upon opening one of the doors, little to Zenitsu's knowledge, it was their fellow demon slayer recruit Inosuke Hashibira, who was also there for the mission. However, the noise had attracted Zenitsu's worst nightmare, an extremely low-ranked demon. Zenitsu ran away with the little boy, but after being cornered in a room, the demon slayer passed out. The demon crawled towards the 2, ready to eliminate them, when suddenly... But the demon slayer had forgotten what he did when he was unconscious. So he thanked the little boy for saving his life and continued to look for an escape route. Unbeknownst to Zenitsu, Tanjiro's fight was raging on, causing the rooms to flip around. Upon entering one of these rooms, the two were sent flying outside, knocking out Zenitsu. When he had finally awoken, Zenitsu could hear that his friend had defeated the demon inside, but he could also hear strange footsteps approaching him.
鬼の気配がするぜ。
あいつせっかち野郎
なんだ
Inosuke Hashibara wanted to kill the demon that resided in Tanjiro's secret box. Although Tanjiro had never told Zenitsu what was inside the box, he could sense it with his sharp ears. His sharp ears also told him something else.
炭治郎からは泣きたくなるような優しい音がする。今まで聞いたこともないくらい優しい音だ。生き物からはとにかく音がしている。呼吸音、心音、血の巡る音、それを注意深く聞くと相手が何を考えているか分かった。鬼殺隊でありながら鬼を連れてる炭治郎。でもそこには必ず事情があるはずだ。それは俺が納得できる事情だって信じてる。俺が直接炭治郎に話を聞く。突っ込んでろ！
Zenitsu, the coward, the weak-willed, had steeled his resolve in order to protect what was most precious to his friend. He refused to fight his fellow demon slayer and took a beating instead, but Inosuke refused to stand down, so he decided to end the lives of both the demon inside the box and Zenitsu.
やめろ！
Tanjiro had put an end to Inosuke's antics, defeating him in a battle of fists, and shortly after the three demon slayers were summoned to a nearby demon slayer facility to heal. The trio had their wounds healed and were resting that night when Zenitsu decided to address the elephant in the room.
炭治郎、誰も聞かないから俺が聞くけどさ、鬼を連れているのはどういうことなんだ？
善逸、分かっててかばってくれたんだな。善逸は本当にいいやつだな。最初から分かってたよ。善逸が優しいのも強いのも。
ふざけんなよ。強くはねえよ。お前が正一君を連れてくの邪魔したのは許す。は？炭治郎。お前こんな可愛い女の子連れて毎日ウキウキウキウキ旅してたんだな。
Thus, Zenitsu's obsession with Nezuko had begun, a young boy head over heels for a demon. After a few days of rehabilitation, the three received news that they had a new mission. Together.
3人はナタグモ山に行け、ナタグモ山に行け。
Zenitsu, Tanjiro, and Inosuke made their way to Mount Natagumo for their first official mission as a team. They had reached their destination at night, but Zenitsu's sharp ears had heard something evil when they discovered a demon slayer lying on the ground. He begged them for help, but was quickly pulled into the forest by the thread of a spider. Terrified beyond belief, Zenitsu refused to go into the forest, so Tanjiro and Inosuke proceeded without the coward. He hated himself for being an individual filled with fear, longing to be someone who had the courage to protect his friends. But suddenly, Zenitsu realized that Tanjiro had taken Nezuko along with him, so the demon slayer rushed in after them to protect Nezuko. Zenitsu searched desperately for them, while his friends battled one of the members of the spider demon family, but little did he know, he was being followed. Suddenly, the demon slayer was bitten by a spider, and when he looked to his right, there was a massive spider with the face of a human. He hadn't even known that was possible, so he sprinted away in utter terror. He prayed to be awoken from this nightmare, but when he looked up, he saw something beyond his wildest dreams.
でかいわ
So he ran away, but the son of the spider demon family only laughed, telling Zenitsu to look at his hand. When Zenitsu was bit, he was poisoned by this spider's toxins, and within a few minutes the coward would cease to be a human, transforming into a spider himself. Ignoring all logic, the demon slayer climbed a tree and began to have a panic attack when suddenly a voice rang in Zenitsu's head.
狩りしろ泣くな逃げるな降りてこいこのバカ者じいちゃん師範と呼びじいちゃんの期待に応えたいんだよ俺だってじいちゃんに隠れて修行もしてんだよ全然寝てないの俺申し訳ないと思ってるよこんな俺でさでも無理なんだ落ち着け善逸お前には才能が
嫌な人生だよ雷に打たれてさ俺が一番自分のこと好きじゃない生きてるだけありがたかったけど変わりたいちゃんとした人間になりたい
Zenitsu Agatsuma wanted to change. He wanted to become a person who could protect others. But in his current state, he lacked self-confidence in his abilities, so when the spiders climbed up the tree to finish the coward for good, he fainted.
刀の打ち方を知ってるか
ずっと叩くの泣くよ俺
刀はな叩いて叩き上げて鋼の純度を高め強靭な刀を作るんだ一つのことしかできないならそれを極め抜け一つできれば万々歳だ極限の極限まで磨け
This young man had sharpened a single technique to the point of pure mastery, and when he slumbered, a beast would awaken.
善逸極めろ泣いていいただ諦めるな信じるんだ極限まで叩き上げ誰よりも強靭な刃になれ一つのことを極めろ
雷の呼吸一の型霹靂一閃6連
Zenitsu Agatsuma had defeated the demon. As he lay down, he wasn't sure if it was just a dream, though deep down he had begun to realize his true potential. But his life would soon be over, as the poison from the spider demon hadn't disappeared. He lay down in defeat when the voice of his master returned to him.
諦めるな
諦めるな呼吸を使って少しでも毒の巡りを遅らせるじいちゃんにぶったたかれる炭治郎にも怒られるぞ
彼が鬼を倒してくれたおかげでほんの少しだけ毒の巡りが遅くなった
After Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Nezuko fought multiple spider demons, including a demon of the 12 Kizuki, Rui, the Demon Slayer Corps, and 2 Hashira arrived to clean up the situation. Tanjiro and Nezuko were summoned to the Demon Slayer headquarters for trial, while Inosuke and Zenitsu were sent to the Butterfly Mansion for rehabilitation. After Nezuko's situation was accepted by the Master and Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, Zenitsu's friend and lover were sent to the Butterfly Mansion to regain their strength, much to Zenitsu's joy. His best friend was alive, and Inosuke was sulking and not acting like himself, making the young lad crack up. Zenitsu's body had shrunk due to the spider's poison, but after days of rest and medicine from the Butterfly Mansion, he was fully healed. Inspired by Tanjiro's ability to master total concentration breathing, a technique where one intakes an enormous amount of oxygen that they then focus to various parts of the body to increase physical and mental abilities, Zenitsu trained alongside his friends to master the art as well. Together, the three friends mastered total concentration breathing and became a 10th-fold stronger. And once they were fully healed, they were requested to assist the Flame Hashira on a mission. Zenitsu Agatsuma, Tanjiro Kamado, and Inosuke Hashibara were sent to the Mugen train to meet with the Flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku. But Tanjiro and Inosuke had never seen a train before, so they thought it was the guardian of the land. However, Zenitsu had grown up in the city and had to explain to the two that it was a vehicle meant to transport people. But his explanation came too late, and as Inosuke attacked the train with his swords, the police arrived to arrest them. At times, Zenitsu could keep a surprisingly cool head, so he grabbed his friends and ran, explaining that demon slayers aren't recognized by the government, so they can't run around with swords when boarding a train. But the train was leaving, so the three ran in order to board it. With luck on their side, they made it onto the train and quickly found Kyojuro, the Flame Hashira. Though he was a bit different than they anticipated.
あの人が縁柱？
うまい。
ただの食いしん坊じゃなくて？
うまい。
煉獄さん。
変な人だな。
The conductor stopped by to punch their tickets, but shortly after, multiple demons appeared. The Flame Hashira dealt with them swiftly, receiving praise from the young lads as they called him Big Brother. The train continued along its course, and Zenitsu, along with the rest of the group, had fallen asleep. Little did they know they had been caught in the trap of a demon from the 12 Kizuki.
言われた通り切符を切って眠らせました。よくやってくれた。家族に会えるいい夢を。
The demon was none other than Enmu, lower rank 1 of the 12 Kizuki. She had placed the three into a deep sleep, dreaming of their deepest desires, but one that would be nearly impossible to awaken from. And in Zenitsu's dream,
白爪草もたくさん咲いてる。お花で輪っか作ってあげるよ。ねずこちゃん。
たくさん作ってね善逸さん。
途中に川があるけど浅いし大丈夫だよね。
私泳げないの。
ねずこちゃんのつま先も濡らさないよ。お任せくださいな。
Enmu had sent 4 children to enter their dreams and stabbed the Demon Slayer's spiritual cores. But the child who was sent to destroy Zenitsu's spiritual core was confused, as the coward's spiritual core was pitch black, reflecting Zenitsu Agatsuma's self-hate and his inability to find his true self. The little boy had little idea what he had gotten himself into.
ふざけんな。なんだ。ここに入ってきていいのはねずこちゃんだけなんだよ。
殺すぞ。
While in his dream, Zenitsu protected Nezuko, in the real world she had awoken her brother and was fighting to protect the passengers of the train. She fought and fought, but she was caught off guard and trapped by the demon's attacks. However, Zenitsu had sensed his loved one was in danger.
雷の呼吸、一の型、
霹靂一閃。
禰豆子ちゃんは俺が守る。
Zenitsu and Nezuko fought to protect the back three carriages of the train, while Tanjiro and Inosuke battled the member of the 12 Kizuki. After the train had stopped and the demon was defeated, Zenitsu and Nezuko had fallen asleep on one another, while the battle between Kyojuro and upper-ranked 3, Akaza, raged on. When dawn began to appear, Zenitsu placed Nezuko back inside her box to protect her from the sunlight, unaware of what had transpired. He discovered his friends surrounding Kyojuro's body and realized his idol was dead. Calmly, Zenitsu told his friends of Kyojuro's deeds on the train, though he was in complete disbelief that someone this strong had been killed. With tears beginning to stream down his face and Tanjiro's words of despair, Zenitsu wondered if it would ever be possible for someone like him to truly be strong. Four months after the death of Kyojuro Rengoku, Zenitsu surprisingly had turned a corner. He calmly analyzed the state of despair his friends were in and how the three would move forward from here.
炭治郎でも落ち込んだりダメかもしれないって思っちゃうことあるんだな。煉獄さんみたいな鍛え抜かれた音がする人でさえ死んじゃったんだからな。そりゃそうだよな。悲しいし取り乱すよな。伊之助だってギャン泣きだった。どんな強そうな人だって。だけどずーっとうずくまってたって仕方ないから、傷ついた心を叩いて立ち上がる。煉獄さんもきっとそういう人だったはず。
He knew his friends well and was confident they would get back on their feet. Zenitsu Agatsuma and his two friends relentlessly trained at the Butterfly Mansion, while occasionally embarking on individual missions. These solo missions would help Zenitsu grow, helping the young boy gain a sliver of confidence. When one day, a Hashira showed up at the Butterfly Mansion to steal a young girl for his next mission, but Zenitsu's friend Tanjiro wouldn't allow it.
葵さんの代わりに俺たちが行く。
俺たちだと？
The Hashira who had smacked this girl's butt for no reason was Tengen Uzui, a flashy young man also known as the Sound Hashira. Their mission was to locate and eliminate the demon wreaking havoc in the entertainment district, but there was a stipulation.
いや、ちょっと打ち手は。
They had to dress as women to infiltrate the various courtesan houses. Tengen's 3 wives had originally set out on this mission, but they went missing. So now the group must locate and save Tengen's wives, as well as eliminate the demon lurking in the dark. Much to Zenitsu's dismay, he was the last of the 3 boys to be selected by a courtesan house. But luckily, Zenitsu had an ear for music.
自分を捨てた男、見返してやろうっていう気概を感じる。あの子はのし上がるね。
便所掃除でも何でもいいんでもらってくださいよ。見返してやるあの男。
He had been selected into the Kyogoku house, even though they deemed him extremely ugly. While his friends worked in the other courtesan houses, Zenitsu worked as well. When one night, the boy overheard the sound of a young girl crying and rushed over. He came upon 3 scared young girls and a broken vase, but when he attempted to comfort one of them...
あんた、人の部屋で何してんの?
Due to his enhanced hearing, Zenitsu Agatsuma realized that the one who had approached him was an upper-ranked demon. However, the demon directed her wrath towards one of the girls by grabbing her by the ear and yelling at her, causing Zenitsu, in a rare bout of courage, to grab the demon's arm and demand that she stop. so she tossed him aside, knocking the boy out cold. But the demon had sensed something off.
失神はしているけれども受け身を取りやがった鬼殺隊なんだろう。
Zenitsu awoke in a room, being tended by the 3 young girls he risked his life to protect. They thanked him for the kindness he showed them and let him rest. But once they departed the room... The next day, Tengen informed Zenitsu's friends that he was missing and there had been no contact since last night. While his friends searched for him, Zenitsu was trapped in the demon's obi. That night, Tanjiro faced off with the upper-ranked demon, Daki, while Inosuke discovered a hole in the Kyogoku house. The boar-masked boy traveled down the hole to find an array of obi holding multiple humans, including Tengen's wives and his friend Zenitsu Agatsuma. Zenitsu's friend slashed and fought the obi, but it seemed as if there was no end, when suddenly...
一の型敵歴一戦。
お前ずっと寝てた方がいいんじゃねえか。
The demon was astounded by Zenitsu Agatsuma's blistering speed, but out of nowhere, a hole opened in the ground above them as Tengen Uzui made his entrance, slicing the demon into 1,000,000 pieces. He had finally saved his wives, putting his mind at rest. So he grabbed the 2 young boys and rushed to Tanjiro's aid. The sound Hashira had reached Zenitsu's friend first, and beheaded the upper-ranked demon as Tanjiro wrestled to calm down his sister Nezuko. Unknown to the boys, Daki's brother Gyutaru had emerged to protect his sister. Zenitsu and Inosuke arrived just as Nezuko had relaxed, but seeing the state of things, they rushed to assist Tengen. The Hashira had identified the demon's weakness. The brother-sister demon duo had to be beheaded at the same time. However, the Hashira had been poisoned and was beginning to lose faith. That is, until his new students arrived, and Tengen approved.
てめえら、派手な登場じゃねえか。気に入ったぜ!
In an instant, Daki attacked Tengen from his blind side, when in a flash...
俺は君に言いたいことがある。耳を引っ張って怪我をさせた子に謝れ。何をしても許されるわけじゃない。自分がされて嫌だったことは人にしちゃいけない。
違うな、それは。お前らも同じように喉笛かき切ってやるからな。
Zenitsu and Inosuke would face Daki, while Tanjiro and Tengen would battle Gyutaro, and thus their battle began.
Inosuke! 次来るぞ! 合わせて切らなきゃ倒せねえのによ! Inosuke! 落ち着け! 全く同時に切る必要はないんだ! 諦めず攻撃に行こう! お前なんかすごいいい感じじゃねえか! どうした? うざいさ!
Zenitsu was forced to protect his friend, who had exerted nearly all his energy to protect Tengen's wife. However, the battle had only just begun, and with the 3 friends reunited, Zenitsu gave his orders.
カバの男よりもまだこちらの方が弱い。まずこっちの首を切ろう。炭治郎、まだ動けるか。動ける。平鶴さん、危ない。後ろ。
だんだん動きが鈍くなってきてるわね。
3人なら勝てるぜ。よし、 八の型霹靂一閃前発電
こいつ
ダウンブレイカーねはん
Tengenuzui had been knocked out, freeing Gyutaru to save his sister and slay Inosuke. Zenitsu's friend had been shell-shocked and didn't realize the danger he was in, so Zenitsu Agatsuma put his life on the line.
炭治郎危ないしまった
俺が目を離したからこんなことに。善逸、俺に構うな。
All seemed lost, and the demons seemingly had won. Gyutaru toyed with Tanjiro, while Zenitsu was trapped under a pile of rubble as a result of saving his friend. However, Gyutaro underestimated Zenitsu's friend, and when Tanjiro provided a 1 in a million chance to slay the demons once and for all, Zenitsu used his ultimate move.
雷の呼吸、一の型、霹靂一閃、
変則
切れろ切れろ、振り抜け。霹靂の神速は2回しか使えない。足がダメになる。炭治郎がこの千載一遇を作った。絶対に切る、絶対に。
The battle raged on, and with Tengenuzui back on the battlefield, hope was reignited, but Zenitsu's legs were losing strength, so Daki went for the kill.
なんでよこいつ。
Zenitsu and his two friends had officially slayed an upper-ranked demon, and after Nezuko had healed the boys from the poison of Gyutaru, they celebrated their victory together. After the events in the entertainment district, Zenitsu Agatsuma had awoken 2 days before Tanjiro and was forced on a mission against his will. While his friend Tanjiro journeyed to the swordsmith village, Zenitsu traveled to a snowy area with a new band of demon slayers, although he tried to escape and had to be restrained by them. His uncooperative, cowardly behavior and his begging to reunite with his old comrades drew the ire of his peers. Although he was still a coward, Zenitsu had saved countless lives throughout his journey thus far. His trials and tribulations had begun to transform Zenitsu Agatsuma from a cowardly boy to a young man. And that brings us to the end of the story of Zenitsu Agatsuma. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like this video, subscribe, and comment which anime character story you would like to see next. We'll see you next time.